China is taking action to boost farm income and make improvements to agricultural lands and infrastructure. China's top legislature drafts a social insurance law to let people receive pension payments even if they relocate. Hello and welcome to NewsHour on CCTV International. I'm Li Xin in Beijing. As the financial crisis worsens and Western consumers keep a firm grip on their shrinking wallets, developing countries like China have to count on domestic consumption to sustain their economic growth. Rural residents make up 56% of China's population, and they are the focus of the government's plans to boost internal spending and lending. But higher spending demands more money in the pocket first. Our reporter Xu Jiaying takes us to some rural areas across the country that are on the move to increase farmers' incomes in 2009.
Henan Province, the breadbasket of China. Each year, rural lands here yield 10% of the country's total grain output. But high production doesn't bring wealth due to the declining world grain price. To tackle the sliding world market, a central government meeting in Beijing pledged to facilitate income increases for farmers in the coming year. It has promised more government infrastructure investment. The policy is already being implemented in Henan. 5 billion yuan has been allocated to develop low production lands in 2009, 3 times as much as the previous input. The move is also echoed in East Province of Jiangsu. Over 2 billion yuan from both central and local government budgets will be invested into an irrigation upgrade. Besides the capital input, commodity prices are another top priority to boost the farmers' wallets. The central government has agreed to continue raising the minimum purchase price for grain. Implementing the call, some North China provinces are purchasing bigger volumes of grain. This local official told reporters that more trucks are being put into use to facilitate larger grain transportation. Meanwhile, finding jobs for returning migrant workers is also an issue not to be ignored. Official figures show about 7.8 million migrant laborers had returned to their hometown earlier than in previous years. They will be encouraged to start their own businesses with credit extensions and tax breaks. Xu Jiaying, CCTV.
The Ministry of Agriculture says this year's grain output has reached a record 528.2 billion kilograms, which is a robust 5.4% growth over last year. This also represents an annual grain output growth for the 5th consecutive year, the first time in nearly 4 decades. Despite the harvest, China's Ministry of Agriculture, Sun Zhengcai, says it is a big challenge to ensure the continual increase of farmers' income in the next year. Li Ying has more details.
The Chinese agriculture minister says the impact of the global economic crisis is being felt by the country's agricultural sector. At this stage, there is a downturn in the prices of the country's agricultural produce. The number of rural migrant workers returning their hometowns is on the rise. The country's agricultural exports are also facing more hurdles. He stressed that despite the string of adverse conditions, it's still the central government's top priority to ensure the stable development of agriculture and the continual increase of farmers' incomes.
The central government will enhance the strength of its agricultural subsidies. In line with the principles of expanding the range and raising the standards, the subsidies will continue fully covering fine varieties of rice, wheat, cotton and soybeans from the northeast. They will also be extended to cover fine varieties of rape.
The Chinese central government is stressing that rural areas have the biggest potential for China to boost domestic demand and maintain steady economic growth. Farmers are also the focus of efforts to safeguard and improve people's social welfare. Sun Zhengcai said the ministry has already allocated more than 5.1 billion yuan to a new agricultural investment fund recently set aside from the central budget. In 2009, the Chinese government will further increase its subsidy for the purchase of agricultural machinery and equipment to 10 billion yuan. The ministry is working on a detailed implementation plan to ensure that farmers can receive the subsidy before the spring plowing season. Li Ying, CCTV.
China's top legislature has released the draft of a law on social insurance, the first of its kind in the country. It would allow people to pay pension premiums in one place but receive payments in another if they move to other cities or provinces. Yang Fei takes a look.
The proposed law specifies a common right for citizens, urban and rural alike, to pay premiums and enjoy social insurance for medical care, work injuries, unemployment, and childbirth. Meanwhile, the endowment insurance system will be revised significantly to allow citizens to pay pension premiums in one place and draw money in other cities or provinces.
Endowment insurance included in the draft law has two significant improvements. First, transfer of the insurance permits, and second, the endowment insurance will function as a whole at the nation level, which facilitates the flow of the workforce across the country.
Experts say the draft law will also make it possible for social insurance premium reductions, which will benefit both employees and enterprises.
Generally, a premium surplus of endowment insurance occurs every year in China, as the spending has been less than the premiums collected, which creates conditions for premium reduction of 2% or even more.
In light of the current economic crisis, Zheng says the endowment premium reduction will help boost domestic demand and relieve the pressure of cash flow.
After the social insurance law is approved, the workers will be paid more and be more willing to spend. Meanwhile, the companies will have a much more clear expectation of their social responsibility, and their costs will be cut to a bearable level.
The draft of the law says governments will cover medical insurance expenses for citizens who live on low-income subsidies, have serious disabilities, or are older than 60 years. Yang Fei, CCTV.
The Chinese government said Saturday it would expand coverage of its anti-poverty program in rural areas next year to include an additional 28.4 million residents. The government says rural residents with an annual per capita income of less than 1,067 yuan would be covered in the country's poverty relief program next year. Currently, the program only benefits rural residents with per capita incomes of less than 786 yuan. By the end of last year, the country had a rural population of 14.79 million living in absolute poverty. The low-income rural population was 28.41 million.